The restaurant was so quiet that the sound of a fork touching a plate echoed across the polished marble floor. Then, without saying a single word, a young waitress placed a billionaire's bill on the table. One sentence had been circled in trembling ink. It read, "Gunman behind you. Deal gone wrong. Exit now." For one frozen heartbeat, nothing moved. The billionaire's pulse thundered in his ears while every instinct told him that if he looked over his shoulder, he might never see another sunrise. Sometimes the difference between life and death is not courage. Sometimes it is the kindness of a stranger who risks everything for someone she has never met. Before we continue, if you believe kindness, courage, and second chances can change lives, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone you care about, and subscribe to Single Dad Empire. Your support helps these inspiring stories reach more people around the world. Every Tuesday afternoon, Adrian Mercer escaped the endless boardrooms and private helicopters by eating lunch alone at an ordinary downtown restaurant where no one expected billion-dollar decisions to be made. His security team hated the routine, but Adrian insisted that success had slowly stolen every normal moment from his life. After building one of the country's largest renewable energy companies, he had gained wealth beyond imagination, yet he had lost the simple comfort of trusting strangers. Employees treated him like royalty. Investors saw him as a walking fortune. Even distant relatives suddenly remembered his birthday. The little family restaurant remained the only place where he could sit by a window, enjoy homemade soup, and pretend that life had once been simple. The restaurant belonged to an elderly couple who had spent 4 decades serving hard-working people. Their granddaughter, Marisol Bennett, worked every daytime shift while attending nursing school at night. Life had never been generous to her family. Her father had passed away after protecting a stranger during a robbery years earlier, leaving behind nothing except memories of extraordinary kindness. Her mother battled a long illness while medical bills grew larger every month. Every dollar Marisol earned disappeared into rent, medicine, tuition, and groceries. Yet customers remembered her because she smiled with genuine warmth even on days when exhaustion rested heavily behind her eyes. She believed people carried invisible battles, and perhaps a smile could lighten one of them. That Tuesday seemed ordinary until 2 sharply dressed men entered the restaurant 20 minutes after Adrian arrived. They chose a table directly behind him but never ordered more than black coffee. Their eyes constantly drifted toward Adrian instead of the menu. Marisol noticed one of them repeatedly touching the inside of his jacket. Years of observing nervous customers had sharpened her instincts. Something felt deeply wrong. While refilling coffee, she overheard only a few whispered words, but they were enough to chill her blood. The words, "after the signature," "parking garage," and "no witnesses," floated through the silence. Her heartbeat accelerated. She wanted to believe she had misunderstood, yet fear settled inside her stomach like cold stone. Running to call the police could alert the men. Warning Adrian directly might expose her immediately. Every second mattered. Then she remembered that the bill would naturally pass through her hands before reaching his table. Fighting trembling fingers, she circled the printed words, "Thank you," near the bottom of the receipt and quickly wrote beneath them, "Gunman behind you. Deal gone wrong. Exit now." She folded the receipt carefully, forced herself to breathe normally, and delivered it with the same polite smile she gave every customer. Adrian unfolded the bill expecting nothing more than the total. The handwritten warning instantly erased every ordinary thought from his mind. Years of negotiating dangerous international contracts had taught him never to ignore unlikely warnings. Without changing his expression, he slowly reached for his wallet, stood calmly, thanked the waitress with a small nod that revealed nothing, and walked toward the side exit instead of the main entrance. Behind him, chairs suddenly scraped across the floor. Heavy footsteps followed. The trap had been discovered. Outside, daylight flooded the narrow alley beside the restaurant. Adrian kept walking without running, knowing panic would confirm everything. At that exact moment, a city sanitation truck unexpectedly backed into the alley, temporarily blocking the path between Adrian and the pursuing men. The delay lasted barely 30 seconds, but it gave Adrian enough time to reach a crowded sidewalk where off-duty police officers happened to be directing traffic after a nearby construction accident. Seeing uniforms, the suspicious men disappeared into the crowd before anyone could identify them. Police quickly surrounded the restaurant after Adrian reported the warning. Security cameras revealed the two men leaving in a stolen vehicle that was later found abandoned several miles away. Investigators eventually uncovered evidence connecting them to a criminal organization attempting to sabotage a multi-billion-dollar energy agreement Adrian was preparing to sign later that afternoon. If Adrian had remained inside only a few more minutes, the attack would almost certainly have happened in the parking garage exactly as planned. News of the failed plot spread rapidly across financial circles, but almost no one knew the identity of the anonymous waitress who had prevented a national headline from becoming a tragedy. Marisol begged police not to reveal her name publicly because she feared retaliation against her sick mother. She quietly returned to work the following week as if nothing extraordinary had happened. Bills still arrived. Nursing textbooks still waited to be studied. Life continued with the same quiet struggles. Adrian, however, could not forget the frightened handwriting on that receipt. While investigators focused on criminals, he quietly asked trusted staff members to learn about the waitress who had risked everything without expecting recognition. What they discovered humbled him more than any business failure ever had. Marisol lived in a tiny apartment, worked double shifts, attended classes until midnight, and often skipped meals so her mother could afford medication. She had saved the life of one of the wealthiest men in the country while wondering whether she could afford next month's electricity bill. Several weeks later, Adrian returned to the same restaurant. This time he arrived without television cameras, reporters, or corporate executives. He simply ordered lunch, thanked the elderly owners for their hospitality, and waited patiently until Marisol finished serving another table. She looked surprised to see him alive and smiling. Adrian quietly handed her a small envelope before leaving. Inside was not cash but a handwritten letter explaining that courage like hers could never truly be repaid. Along with the letter was a full scholarship covering the remainder of nursing school, complete medical treatment for her mother, and an offer guaranteeing employment at one of the country's most advanced charitable hospitals after graduation. Marisol sat alone in the restaurant kitchen reading the letter through tears she could no longer hide. For years she had prayed only for enough strength to survive another difficult day. She had never imagined that one moment of bravery would completely rewrite her future. Her grandmother embraced her tightly while both women cried with relief. For the first time in years, hope felt stronger than fear. Months passed, and Marisol flourished in nursing school. Instead of worrying about overdue bills, she focused entirely on becoming the compassionate nurse her late father had always believed she could become. Her mother's health steadily improved thanks to consistent treatment that had once seemed impossible. Adrian visited occasionally, never as a billionaire seeking praise but as a grateful friend who understood that wealth alone could never purchase loyalty, courage, or compassion. One spring afternoon, Adrian was invited to speak at the graduation ceremony for newly qualified nurses. As he stood before hundreds of proud families, he looked toward Marisol wearing her graduation uniform with quiet confidence. He spoke not about business success or billion-dollar companies but about ordinary people whose unseen choices change countless lives. He explained that the world celebrates famous heroes while overlooking everyday heroes who quietly protect strangers, comfort patients, raise children alone, or sacrifice their own dreams so others may keep believing. His voice briefly broke as he admitted that he stood there alive only because one exhausted waitress refused to ignore her conscience. The audience rose together in a standing ovation, but Marisol lowered her head with humble gratitude. She knew that true courage rarely feels heroic in the moment. It usually feels terrifying. It asks ordinary people to choose kindness even when fear screams louder. Her father's example had guided her hand when she wrote those few desperate words on a restaurant receipt. His legacy had quietly saved another life years after his own had ended. Adrian later established the Bennett Courage Foundation in honor of Marisol's family. The organization provided scholarships for students entering healthcare, emergency services, and community service careers despite financial hardship. Thousands of young people eventually found opportunities because one waitress chose compassion over personal safety during an ordinary daytime lunch. The receipt that once carried a life-saving warning was carefully preserved inside a glass frame at the Foundation's headquarters as a reminder that history sometimes changes with a single handwritten sentence. Years later, visitors often asked Adrian what the greatest investment of his career had been. They expected him to mention renewable energy, technology, or international partnerships. Instead, he always smiled gently before pointing toward the framed receipt. He would explain that every fortune in the world becomes meaningless without people willing to protect one another. Companies can be rebuilt. Money can be earned again. A human life cannot be replaced. If this story touched your heart and reminded you that even the smallest act of courage can change someone's future forever, please like this video, leave your thoughts in the comments, share it with family and friends, and subscribe to Single Dad Empire so more inspiring stories of hope can reach people who need them. Special request, please comment with the words, "Kindness saves lives," if you believe one brave decision can change the world. As the afternoon sunlight poured through the restaurant windows once again, customers laughed over meals without realizing that they were sitting inside a place where kindness had quietly defeated violence. No monument marked the moment. No headlines captured the trembling hand that wrote a warning instead of remaining silent. Yet somewhere beyond wealth, beyond power, and beyond fear, two lives had forever become connected by a simple choice to care about another human being. And perhaps that is the greatest reminder of all, that heroes do not always wear uniforms or stand beneath bright lights. Sometimes they wear an apron, carry a tray, and leave behind nothing more than a handwritten message that gives someone else the priceless gift of another tomorrow.